Wow, only one. Okay, then I'm glad that we are all here because it's really, really essential to know how to be a timekeeper and to do a good job at it. Because, as we've said, this is a competition. This is a scoring situation, and a big part, a crucial part of the whole competition is to time and to have timers doing their jobs. If they do them right, and if everybody does everything right, then there aren't any penalties, but it happens a lot. There are often penalties. So, timekeepers, you have two main tasks. You are there to show time cards that look like this. You are there to show these to the competitors, okay, so that they know how much time they have left. All right? And your job is also to keep track of time on a time sheet that you're going to see very shortly. Your timekeeping equipment is, of course, a timekeeping sheet, which I'll have up on the screen in a minute. You need two sets of time cards. You'll have two different colors, one for each team, prosecution and defense. You will need a writing implement. If you're a pencil person, don't be ashamed. You can still use a pencil. Two stopwatches. Okay, they have to be silent. You may not use your phone. Okay, there should not be any use of any electronic devices in the courtroom, and that is part of the mock trial rules. I recommend using two different color stopwatches. It's easier to keep track of which one was the defense, which one was the prosecution, if they're not identical.
Or labeling them.
Labeling them is lovely, but, you know, even if you don't, if they're at least different from one another, it helps you keep track. And sometimes it's really helpful to have a clipboard if you're seated in the jury box, which you often are. You don't have a table, and so it's a lot of things to juggle. Okay, this is a sheet of time card instructions that I have plenty of, and you can take one with you as you go today. And this tells you how to raise a time card. Okay, so at the beginning of direct examinations, when your stopwatch says 1 minute, you raise the 19 because they have 19 minutes left in direct examination. Okay, does that make sense? It's easy math. And this has got all of them for direct, for cross, for opening, for closing, so that you know which card goes up when. It's all very logical. Once you get the idea of it, it all makes sense to you. So, you have important timekeeper guidelines. Make sure that you are seated where your attorneys can see you when they are questioning witnesses. Okay? If they're questioning from the podium, can they see you from the podium? So if this were the setup, if this were the courtroom that you were having your trial in, you don't want to sit in that end of the jury box, because then somebody standing at the podium can't see you. You need to be up at that end so that you can be seen by the attorney in the podium, right? Because if they're over there, they're not even in your peripheral from here. So you need to be over there.
And
okay?
You probably have, as she said, a clipboard. And when you're raising this time card, it needs to be like so. So you want to make sure that your attorney sees this. This is how I taught timekeeping. And that the judge sees it, and possibly the jury members. So you want to make sure everyone is clear.
And the ones at the table. They all need to be able to see this.
First and foremost, your lawyers, but everyone else. And raise it high. Don't go like this.
Right.
You know, that's not helpful to anybody.
This is not, we don't want you to be shy.
Yeah.
You need to be seen. Okay?
And can I say one more thing? You don't want to be doing this either.
No.
No. That's okay. That's a signal on your part.
Yeah.
No signals allowed.
So, I talked about number 2 already. I showed time cards to the courtroom. Your timekeeping should be very close to the other timers. There will be 2 of you in the jury box. Each team has their own timekeepers. Okay? Now, remember, just as Mrs. Toomey just said, do not make facial expressions or other communication to your teammates. Just show the card. Okay? If they patently refuse to look at you, that's their problem. Okay? You did your job. All right? Okay. So, this is a timer sheet. Nice thing about the timer sheet, it is arranged chronologically how the trial proceeds. Once you understand the timesheet, it just walks you through the entire round. Okay? So, you get your timesheet, you get in the right seat, you know that you have got eye contact with everybody, and so you pull out your timesheet and you start to fill it out. Okay? You always want to begin by filling out the top of the form. It is essential that you properly record which round it is that you are timing, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and the team numbers. Your team will be given a number when they start the competition. That is what that team is known as. So you need to know which team is which. All right? And you need to know which number each team is. Okay? So, the beginning of each round, after introductions, which are not timed, so they have all the time they need before they begin, is the opening statements. Opening statements are the easiest part of the timing because they cannot be interrupted. Okay, there aren't any objections during an opening statement. Okay, so you've got both of your watches. You start with each one set to 0. Okay, you time the prosecution speech and you record the end time. They did there, 2:18. Then you time the defense speech and you record that time as well. Okay, you know here that the prosecution speech was well under the allotted 3 minutes. So you would circle no for time violation. However, the defense speech ran 3:01. Would the defense receive a time violation for this? Say it louder.
There's like a 10-second
grace period. Yes, exactly. They do not receive a violation for this because there is always a 10-second grace period. Okay? So, the circle in the next screen, hopefully, is going to be a no. All right. So, 3:01 is okay. All right. The first witness takes the stand. This is the prosecution side of the case that's being presented. Okay? So, you've done both of the opening statements. This is when you clear both of your watches. Because now we're starting with the defense side of the case. That means the prosecution gets 20 minutes total to present their 3 witnesses. Defense gets 15 minutes total to cross-examine those 3 same witnesses. So when the prosecution attorney begins speaking, time begins. Time stops when an objection is raised. So when an attorney from the defense side stands up and says, "Objection, Your Honor," you stop the time. You don't clear it. You just stop it. Okay? Once the judge has ruled, sustained, overruled, time begins again. Okay? Be sure that you keep 1 watch for prosecution and 1 for defense. Once the prosecution ends the questioning, stop the prosecution watch. Then defense will get up to make their cross-examination. That's when you start the defense watch. Okay? Once the cross-examination is completed, and it will stop during objections as well, there will be what is called redirect. This is when you go back to the prosecution watch, because redirect counts with direct as part of their time. Okay? Then there generally will be allowed a recross, and then you're done. Recross would go on the defense watch because all the directs go on one watch, all the crosses go on the other. Once that witness is excused, don't clear your watch. Write that time in the very first space. Okay? So you have the direct exam time in the left-hand column. You have the cross-exam time in the right-hand column.
It is possible that you would have to stop the watch, or if the presiding judge asks you to, because they have something to say or whatever it is. It may not be during an objection. They just have something to say. And they usually will tell the timekeeper, please stop the watch, okay?
Right.
But otherwise, the time that you stop it is for objections. Ms. McAllister didn't mention when you pick it up. It's as soon as that attorney starts speaking again. Okay.
Right. Well, I said as soon as the judge rules.
I'm sorry. That's actually what I said is incorrect. So as soon as the judge rules, because it may be that attorney is taking a few minutes to gather their papers, etc. Time is continuing.
That's their time. They're using their time.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you've written those times down. You're not clearing your watches. Okay? Witness 2 takes the stand. You begin timing the direct exam with the prosecution watch, stopping time when objections are raised, starting it again after the judge rules. Use the defense watch to do the cross-examination. Don't clear either watch. Redirect and recross proceed in the same manner. When the witness is excused, you record the total amount of time that is on your watch. You are not doing math. You are writing down the running time on the watch. That's why you use 2 watches, so that you don't have to do math. Okay? Because the more math you do, the more chances it's going to be to get messed up. No offense, but time math is a little harder. Okay? Because you're on that 60-second base. Okay? That's why you use 2 watches. You just start them and stop them. You're not doing any plussing or minusing. Okay? If you clear your watch when you're not supposed to, your punishment is you have to do math. This is what is known as justice. Maybe the only justice you see in the courtroom that day. But it is justice. Okay? So, put your second time down. Does that mean that witness number 2 took 7 minutes on the stand? No. It means that witness number 2 took about 3 minutes on the stand. Okay? But that is the amount of time that has totally elapsed towards their 20 minutes. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Is anybody looking at that going, what the frick is she talking about? I'm getting nods. That's good. Okay. Witness 3 proceeds in exactly the same way. Okay? When you are done with witness 3, both direct and cross, you put that time in that box, and you then put it into the total time box. Now see, it sits right next to what the total time says. So 14:51 for those prosecution witnesses. Is that less than 20 minutes? It is. So will there be a time violation? No. And I will circle no. Okay? Once I have filled that totally out, I can clear my watches because the prosecution side is now done. Okay? Then we switch sides. Notice that now cross-examination is in the left column. Direct examination is in the right column because it's now the defense's turn to present their direct examination. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay? And so we do it exactly the same way as we did the prosecution side. We write down how much time is elapsed from 0 because the watch should have been cleared. Okay? Then we do number 2, same exact way. Number 3, same exact way. Okay? The cross-examination presented by the prosecution totaled 15 minutes and 42 seconds. The direct was 18 minutes 44 seconds. Okay? That's what we totaled, and we put it down there at the bottom. The question is there a penalty? You bet there's a penalty. Okay? 1542, that went over. Oh my gosh. So how much did it go over? 42 seconds. How do I know how many points that is? at the bottom that you can't see because the screen is too low, and there's nothing I can do about that, is there's a chart at the bottom that tells you exactly how many seconds equals how many points. 42 seconds over is 2 points out of their score. Oh my gosh, that is huge. Somebody's head will roll. But luckily that's not your problem. You're just the timekeeper. Okay? Then, here we go to closing arguments. To complete the round, you clear both watches when we get to closing arguments. Prosecution may reserve any time that they don't use from their 4 minutes. They would use that remaining time no matter how little, even if it's 3 seconds. I have seen 3-second rebuttals. They reserve whatever time is left from their 4 minutes, and they get to speak again after the defense presents their closing arguments. Therefore, do not clear your watches until the entire round is finished and the judge says that we're finished. Okay? Because if you clear after the prosecution has done what you think is their closing argument, and it turns out they have more time, and you've cleared your watch, we don't know how much time that is. So it's essential that you don't clear until after they have had the chance to do a rebuttal. Okay? Then that total time is then recorded on the timesheet. Okay? And in this case, prosecution went to 4:08. Is there a time violation? No, because it's less than 10 seconds over. Okay? And so you finish the sheet by putting the total penalty points at the bottom, prosecution and defense, and signing your name legibly. Because if we need to look you up, we need to be able to read your name. If you're not good at signing legibly, go ahead and just print it. We accept that.
Yeah. On the last one, when they're doing the closing argument and with the rebuttal for the prosecution, you might have to do some math here because they might ask you, how much time do I have for rebuttal? So you might have to do some math. Sorry, I'm the math teacher. I didn't like her comment earlier that it's a punishment. It's not. It's okay to do math.
Time math is hard.
It's not.
Okay. And you know what? Here's the timekeeper cop-out. If they ask you how much time is remaining, you say, they used 2 minutes and 47 seconds, Your Honor, and then Your Honor can figure out the math because he's got a JD. Just saying. Higher pay scale. Okay. So, quick review. Do you understand? Why do you use 2 stopwatches? Okay, one's for prosecution, one's for defense, but why? What is the reason for using 2 stopwatches? So you don't have to do math! I was an English teacher. When do you clear your stopwatches? Ooh, multiple answer. Raise your hand if you think you know every time you clear the stopwatches.
Okay, so after the prosecution finishes, like their total witnesses.
Uh-huh.
After the defense finishes their total witnesses, and after the closing statements, and then the re-closing statements of the rebuttals.
Almost. You were close. You can fix it for a tag team. After opening statements, after the prosecution presents their side, after the defense presents their side, and then after the judge says it's over. Yes! Excellent. Okay. Here's a trick question. Can you count down time second by second at the end of any part of the trial? Like, no, you may only use your cards. And what cards do you have? You have 30 seconds, you have 10 seconds, and you have stop. Be very forceful with stop because that says we are in the grace period now. Okay? What kind of gestures or communication are you allowed to do with your team?
Nothing.
Good answer. Okay. Should you time the other team?
Yes.
Why? Cross-check, yes. We're in this together. We want it to be right. If you've got 2 timers, you've got a way better chance of this thing being timed accurately. Can you round time off to the nearest 10 seconds?
No.
That happened this year. That was a bad day. That was a bad day. How much math do you need to do when doing timekeeping?
None. Maybe at the end.
You can get away with doing none if you do it right. Okay? Why is timekeeping crucial to your team's success?
So you get the most amount of points.
So you get the most amount of points. That's right, because once it is a competition, and you want to get all the points you can get. Questions on timekeeping? Okay, awesome. What's next? Am I done? We already talked about scoring, so yeah.